The Midnight Children, Chapter 12, in which there are both trolls and gold. Donnie and Stevie emerged from under the bridge like trolls. They were wet and muddy and sneering. Their eyes took to Virginia, and Donnie's sneer turned to a scowl. "Who are you?" he asked. Virginia looked him up and down. The thin line of her mouth curved into a frown. "No offense," she said calmly, "but you don't seem like the kind of person I enjoy spending time with." Most of Ravini's body broke out into a sweat. "What did you say?" Donnie asked, blinking. "Nothing," Ravini squeaked quickly. "This is Virginia. She just moved in next to me." Donnie squinted at Virginia, sizing her up. "Yeah, well, ain't that sweet?" He smeared some version of a smile onto his face. "Welcome to Slaughterville. But you ought to be careful who you choose to be friends with." "I am," Virginia said. She sounded almost bored, which was exactly the opposite of how Ravini felt. "Well, then you should be more careful, 'cause Ravioli here ain't the kind of kid anyone wants to be friends with." Ravini's face burned red. "Says who?" Virginia asked. Donnie snorted. "Says everyone. He's a freak, a loser. Look at him." Virginia turned her head and looked at Rav's face, thoughtful. Her brow furrowed when she saw the tears waiting in his eyes. "I like him," she said softly, and even though she said it to Donnie, she said it into Rav's eyes, and she said it like it was true. "I like him a lot." Ravini's soul tingled. Ravini had seen a bird once trapped in his garage, fluttering in desperate circles, battering its fragile wings against the rafters, the walls. The garage door was closed, but Ravini wasn't strong enough to open it. So he crawled up and opened a small cobweb-choked window. But the wren didn't understand. Too blinded by fear to see the sunlight, it crashed around the garage, shedding feathers like tears. It thought it was trapped, because it had been trapped. Ravini had almost cried watching the anguish of the wren, but then it had landed for a moment on a wheelbarrow, its tiny chest heaving. The sparkling black jewel of its eye had fixed on the bright square of a blue sky. Ah, a triumphant flutter of wings, and the wren was free in the great green world. With Virginia's words, Ravini felt the same feeling. Virginia had opened a window. It doesn't have to be a big moment when a soul realizes that maybe life doesn't have to be what it has been so far. It can be a glance across a garage, simply words, simply said. It was just a start when Ravini heard Virginia say those words. A seed, not an oak tree. But the magical thing about seeds is that they grow. Just ask an oak tree. "You like him, Ravioli? Nobody likes Ravioli. He's a weakling," he cries. And "So?" Virginia cut in, again without any fight in her words, turning her back to Donnie. "Don't you ever cry?" "No," Donnie shot back through her curlish chortle. Virginia tilted her head to the side. "Liar," she said, soft and easy like it was nothing. Ravini died 1,000 little deaths on the inside when she said it. The open window forgotten. "What did you call me?" "I called you a liar because you just lie. It isn't that complicated." Donnie sputtered. His face turned red, then white, then with red blotches. Ravini didn't think that was a good sign. He was right. Donnie's hands curled into fists. He stepped forward right into Virginia's face, his muscles tense and ready. Ravini didn't exactly plan on opening his mouth. He certainly didn't plan on saying anything, but really he hadn't planned on giving a stranger a jar of frogs for her birthday, and he hadn't planned on sneaking into a graveyard at midnight. There was just something about Virginia that seemed to change his plans. "Leave her alone," Ravini said, and then he nearly vomited. Virginia looked to him. Donnie's head turned slowly toward Ravini, too, eyes blinking furiously, nostrils flaring, jaw muscles working. The word rhinoceros came to mind. What did you just say? He growled. Even Stevie looked a little scared. Virginia, however, did not. We know you heard him, she said, rolling her eyes. You're very dramatic, you know. The world jostled just a bit off its axis. Ravini nearly lost his balance, although that could have been because he wasn't breathing and his heart had stopped. Donnie's demotic gaze shifted, thankfully away from Ravini and back to Virginia. You're lucky, Donnie finally managed to say through gritted teeth, that I don't hit girls. You're lucky that you don't hit girls, Virginia said calmly, because this one hits back. Donnie's mouth opened and closed. His face twitched. You know what you are? He asked finally, glaring her up and down. Yes, Virginia answered simply, but Donnie's question had been rhetorical. Dressing like a boy, talking like that, you're a dirty little creep. His narrow eyes slid back to Ravini. And you're a dirty little freak. He smirked and shook his head. Look at the two of you, a couple of weirdos, losers, the creep and the freak. Donnie let the words slide out of his mouth like greased eels. He cocked his head back with a gloating sneer. The creep and the freak, Virginia repeated doubtfully. She looked at Ravini. A smile grew slowly on her face. It was the biggest smile he had seen from her yet. It was, to be honest, pretty creepy. That's got a ring to it, she said, nodding. The creep and the freak. I like it. She held out a hand to Ravini, who, too stunned and terrified to think about it, shook it. The creep and the freak. We should have t-shirts made. Donnie's face went from gloat to glare. His eyes glittered with any confusion. You're trash, he spat, apparently determined to keep shooting until something landed. And finally, it seemed that something had. Virginia's smile faded. No, she said, low but strong and sure. I am not trash. I am gold. She put her arm around Ravini, and she said, and he's gold too. Ravini's heart started beating again, and it was beating in a whole new way. Ravini tissed her tongue. Well, this has been a real delight, she said blandly, but I need to get home. Come on, Rav. And then, like it was nothing, they walked away, just walked down the road, leaving Donnie and Stevie gapping. I'm starving, Virginia said after a while, sniffing at the wrapped loaf in her arms. Ravini, however, was still reeling from the near-death experience they just survived. That was, he started, but didn't know how to finish. Amazing, crazy, terrifying. Weren't you scared? What of that jerk? She shrugged. He ain't nothing new. Oh, you don't know Donnie. Sure I do, she said. I've known plenty of Donnies. She reached into the bag and ripped off a chunk of her loaf, then tore it into two and handed half to Ravini. She popped the other half into her mouth. The thing about this world is that there's all kinds of people in it, and there's nothing you can do about that, she said through a crusty mouthful. The only thing to do is decide what kind you are and then be it. Don't worry about anyone else, especially the Donnies. Ravini snorted. Well, that's easy to say. It'll be great just to do that. Just to. Ravini once again wasn't sure what word should come next. It'd be great just to be who I want to be okay, to not be alone, to not be scared, to be happy. Each answer welled up from deep inside him, but each one was yanked back down by his soul before he could say it. Maybe someday, he sighed. Someday. It's a word that's dressed up like hope, but is really sadness all the way down. It feels like a wish, but it almost always surrender. Virginia wiped at her lips with a sleeve. Someday. There'll always be people who want to make you feel small, Rav, but they shouldn't do it with your permission. Ravini bit off a piece of bread, thinking, were you really going to hit him back, he asked, though, a dolefully mouthful. Virginia chewed, then swallowed. No, my arms are almost as skinny as yours, Rav, but I have very sharp knees. I was going to knee him where it counts. Ravini laughed out loud, almost spitting his bread out. Virginia snuck him a quick smile. I have 3 brothers. I know that works. They turned the corner onto Offal Road and were soon standing on the street between their houses. I'm liking you more and more all the time, comrade. Again, just like the night before, Ravini had no idea what he'd done to earn Virginia's kind words. Sometimes a soul just doesn't think it deserves kindness. Every time a soul believes that, though, any soul at all, it's wrong. Why? Ravini asked honestly. Virginia squinted through the midday sunshine on him. You really don't know, do you? She said, almost to herself, then shook her head. You gave me a frog for my birthday. You met me in the moonlight, she said, and you stood up for me to Donnie just now. She pursed her lips. Well, kind of. It wasn't all that impressive, really, but it wasn't nothing. I wasn't lying back there, Rav. I think you're gold. Like everything Virginia said, she said it in a flat and matter of fact, just as though she were calling him a mammal, just as though she was merely stating an unremarkable fact and not, in fact, making his heart soar like a sunrise lark. Ravini tried to swallow. So, when are you going to tell me your secret? Virginia arched an eyebrow. Never, probably, she said, then shrugged. Or soon, maybe. I haven't decided yet. She picked up a piece of bread from between her teeth and flicked it to the ground, and then took a backward step toward her house. Well, see you around, freak. Come back for chapter 13.